Hi, my name is Elizabeth Story, and I am the book designer here at Tachyon Publications. I'm going to show you what I do in my job. Not my whole job, just the only part people care about, which is how do you make a book cover? And I'm going to use as an example of the book cover life cycle one of our upcoming titles, Kitty's Mixtape by Carrie Vaughn. So, how do you make a book cover? Step one is not read the manuscript. You would think that would be step one, but because of the nature of production, advertisement, distribution, you often have to announce books and have covers ready for them before the books are finished or even submitted. So the first step is just to have your title, because you got to put the title on the book, and an idea of your audience, the who you're like, what genre and subgenre you are aiming for. Is this going to be like a science fiction space opera? Is it going to be a YA romantic fantasy? And that'll give you an idea of the sort of visual style you would want to go for. Step two, or maybe 1A, is read the manuscript if you have it. If you can, that is what you want. But you may not be so lucky as to be able to read the book before you design for it. So let's talk about Kitty's Mixtape. This is an urban fantasy book. And urban fantasy has a pretty distinct visual style. If you are an urban fantasy fan, you know what I'm talking about. So let's swing over to trusty Google for some examples. All right, so here are some urban fantasy titles you can get simply by Googling urban fantasy covers. So as you can see, urban fantasy books tend to have saturated color, often neon, to stand out against like a nighttime backdrop, because most urban fantasy book covers take place at night. You can see moons and things on fire and city lights, and people at urban fantasy don't really see the sun much. It's like an episode of Batman the Animated Series. It's all night. So now that we have an idea of the genre, you can look at other books. If you have a previously published author, you can look at their other books and see if they have a particular style that they're being advertised with that you want to either emulate or steer away from. In Kitty's case, this is a Kitty Norville book, when Kitty Norville is a series. So Kitty Norville already has some books out, and we want our book to look like it fits in with the others. So completionists don't be like, this book looks totally different from the rest of the series, and I don't like that, because we all like our books to match. I like my books to match. So we see Kitty's books. Kitty's a werewolf, so she usually has a little wolf hanging out with her. You got your kitty figure, you usually got a wolf. In this case, there's a tiger. Ooh. And Kitty standing against a saturated background, got a full moon, because werewolves, of course. And Kitty is also, Kitty's cool thing is that she is a radio DJ. She does an advice show for supernatural creatures. You can see a little, in this case, there's like a microphone on this one. And in this one, to show that little thing that makes Kitty special because she's fun. And so our title, Kitty's mixtape, we wanted to have that kind of we wanted to have something with her radio or like, you know, a tape or microphone. We wanted to keep that going to show Kitty, you know, being a DJ, being a radio host. So here was the first pass I did. This is the throwing stuff at the wall phase, which is basically just trying anything and see if you like it and what works, what doesn't. I threw in like the standard visuals of like, you know, you got Kitty, you got your wolf, you got the full moon. Kitty lives in Denver, so I used Denver's skyline in some of these, and we wanted to like stress the kind of. I tried doing like some kind of mixer panel and a microphone in this, but I just didn't like how it was turning out, because if you don't know anything about sound equipment, you're like, what the hell's that? And I don't know anything about sound equipment, so that didn't really pop out the way I liked. And I kind of liked these sort of silhouette, bold, more minimalist approach than the kind of saturated thing that you usually see. But again, or this one, which is no figure at all, just like the wolf print with a cassette tape. But again, we wanted it to look like it really belonged in the series. We almost went with this version, which I'm still pretty fond of, but instead we decided to go for this version. The next step, of course, being you show your thumbnails to your bosses, and your bosses argue over them a lot, and until you want to die. And then finally, one of your bosses wins, and you get to take the idea that they like and then do a bunch, just so many variations of the same idea. Because design isn't about getting it right the first try. Design is about doing it about 200 times, getting it right maybe 50 times, and then out of that, picking the best one. So we started off like taking this minimal, bold idea, but again, we wanted it to look more in fitting with the rest of the urban fantasy book. So we added kind of the saturated colors onto the cityscape. You have like a forest to show like the kind of wilderness versus urban landscape. And we did a number of variations of that in different colors. I chose a handwriting font to, you know, make it look like, you know, one of those handmade mixtapes where you write things on the cassette tape. Remember cassette tapes? Amazing. That was 1,000,000 years ago, a relic of an ancient time. But you know what? Mixtapes are cool. And if someone gives you a mixtape, that's really special. So I really like this kind of punk, retro-ish kind of handwriting font. But again, if you look at Kitty's other books, it doesn't really go with Kitty's look. And we really want this book to fit in with the other books while still having a personality of its own. So if you're like, which Kitty book am I looking for? I'm looking for the one with the cassette tape. There it is. So we tried more traditional fonts. And we tried a bunch of arrangements because it's a weird title to work the font around. Kitty's mixtape. Got to stack them around Kitty. How do you arrange them around the figures? Where do you put the tape? Tape in the moon, tape on bottom. And eventually, we ended up, this was the best version of those thumbnails, and it eventually became here's our final cover. This is the full spread that we'll be sending off to our printer. And you can see how it evolved from this version, which was basically all red with a little orange in it. And we kind of like added some purple, made it darker at the top to show a gradation. Kind of tried to give the wolf a little plastic surgery because he looked a little funny. Like make Denver kind of pop in the background so it doesn't sort of melt into the red, and just kind of let the moon be a framing device for the title. And you can see we also added the hyphen on mixtape since the galley, because that's how you spell mixtape. And even if the hyphen looks like it's just kind of hanging out there, that's how you spell it correctly. And you should have the title spelled correctly on your book cover. And we have some really lovely blurbs from Shannon McGuire and L.A. Banks. L.A. Banks on the Kitty in the Midnight Hour, which I believe is the first book in the series. The Midnight Hour is Kitty's radio show, and Shannon McGuire on this book. Because Kitty has a lot of fans, as she should, because Kitty is a really cool series and a really cool character. And it's been really fun working on this book. You're about to send it off to the printer, and then it will be in stores, and you should order it from your local bookstore and to either mail to you or pick up with safe masked drop-offs. And that is how your book is made. That's how the sausage is made. I left off a lot of stuff like how do you lay out the interior, and how many times will you cry when the copy editor finds something the fifth time around that everybody missed. But this is a very streamlined version of how you get a cover and what hell do I do all day at work. Even though I'm not at the office, I'm in my bedroom because it's safe here. There's no coronavirus in my bedroom. I will come out of my bedroom when there's no coronavirus anywhere. So I guess I'll see you guys in a few years. Okay, bye.